Hello, everyone, and welcome to the one, the only, the Fan Show. We are celebrating episode 500 today, a milestone that honestly I cannot believe we have reached. I'm your host, as always, for 500 episodes now, the T-Man, Richard T-Man, and the man in the other box. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, how big of a get is this? Fresh off his halftime performance on Thanksgiving, it's Shabuzi.
Come on now, let's go. And
Bro,
look, the
it's
funny thing is it's crazy because I can't tell you how many messages and Instagram comments I got, man. I swear I need to get some kind of compensation because this guy's walking around wearing my face. It's crazy.
the photo that I doctored up
Mm.
that had your Instagram handle because his hair was hanging just right over the part in between the S and the ZEY. I was like, oh my God, that's
uh,
perfect. So I filled it in the middle. I was like, you can't tell me they're not the same person at this point.
it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's a lot of questions that need to be answered right now because this man, he's from like generally the same area. He's from Virginia. It's just too much of a coincidence. I need some answers from somebody.
Well, folks, we do not have the budget to get Shabuzi. This is Father Malcolm McCoy, aka not Shabuzi, and
Mm-mm-mm.
he is our co-host for this episode 500. And man, I have no agenda for the episode, FYI, because 500. There's a lot that you can either talk about. There's a lot that you can go over. I know Malc has some questions prepared for me. We will, though, we will go over the Hall of Fame class, 2024
Mm.
class for the Fan Show Hall of Fame later on in the episode. But really, I mean, to recap what we talk about on here, which is indoor football, the things that have happened. First and foremost, shout out, congrats to Amir Ishmael, fellow linebacker, Malk.
Hmm.
He played several years in the IFL, and I know him through when I got my start in Spokane as a DC, and then he got his head coaching gig with the Massachusetts Pirates and was going to be with Iowa, but then got another gig for college, and he's kind of been working his way through the college circuit in Michigan, where he's from. He's most recently
Cool.
be up in the CFL, and now he is back in Massachusetts to coach for the Pirates again. So
Man.
um, they have, I think, a pretty good season ahead of them, so that'll be exciting. And then we had not one, not two, but three teams go dormant, even though we all know what that kind of means. And to correct somebody, and I forget who it was that said this, that no team has ever come back from going dormant. That is incorrect. The Quad City Steamwheelers did officially go dormant 1 year and they came back the next and they're still going strong. So it has been done. It is, however, the odds are not in your favor kind of deal. But the Duke City Gladiators, Malk, I know, pour one out. You probably had your moment of
Man.
silence. I feel like we saw it coming because you can take the team out of the CIF, but can you ever really take the CIF out of the team?
No, I mean apparently not. Apparently not, man. I with everything in me, I wanted Duke City to really, just get over the hump and actually be a contender in the IFL like they were in the CIF. But they could never really put it together, either on whether it be on the field or off the field. It seems like they had one too many problems to actually, keep them afloat. So wishing the best for them. I know a lot of guys who are planning to go back and play this upcoming season, but it derailed a lot of guys' plans. But for those guys who were potentially planning on going back there, keep your head up. Football is a game of timing, so just make yourself marketable and just wait on the next, make yourself available for the next opportunity. So you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, Ernesto Lacayo's already landed with a new team. He's going to go kick for the San Diego Strike Force, so
hmm
good landing spot for him. He's going to keep swinging. I think his like 15th or 16th season now. He's up there with
man.
old man Claude, who's going to come back and play again. Claude's coming back, Ernesto's coming back, but the other team, the Frisco Fighters. Now, I didn't see this coming, but I will say it's not as surprising if you know how indoor football works. And that is that, when I first got into the league, people would say, oh, this is the perfect league or game for communities, towns, cities that don't have a professional sport, i.e., the Iowa Barnstormers there in Des Moines, Iowa, or places
Mhm.
like that. Spokane, closest professional team was Seattle and the Seahawks, and they would sell out like every Saturday for the Spokane Shock. So you notice the trend with markets like that. If they didn't have a close by professional team, they did pretty well. But you couldn't argue that with an Arizona, the Rattlers. Here's the catch, though. You have to win. Like, not just like win, you have to win it all, which the Rattlers do. And the Frisco Fighters got very close several times, but the postseason
Mhm.
was like their biggest enemy. So at a certain point, ownership, especially if you're partnered with the Dallas Stars, you get tired of losing money, and it's,
Yes, sure.
and they have a variety of winning teams in Dallas in the Frisco area. Not the Cowboys, but I yes, we will talk about the Washington Commanders here in a second. I can't believe
Come
we're actually
on.
going to talk about that.
Come
Um,
on.
but the third and final team is the Sioux Falls Storm, which I think is
Mm.
the biggest shock of all. You're talking about a multi-time champion. They won like seven in a row. They're like 11-time champion. I don't know. You lose count at a certain point, but once Riggs walked away, you kind of felt they were on borrowed time if they weren't going to win. I didn't think it would be this soon, but when they hired me initially back in 2019, they said, "Hey, we're going to be in this for 3 to 5 years," and it has been, 3 to 5 years now. So they might be tired of losing money too. But all I can say is
Crazy.
that if you know what I went through with that franchise, be it for 6 months, couldn't have happened to a nicer ownership group. So
Uh.
moment of silence for the storm. Okay, and we're moving on here. Like, I feel for their fans, I feel for their players. I do not feel for that ownership group because they
Yeah.
just did not have what it takes. Clearly, they didn't. And they can blame
Man.
the arena all they want, but Riggs calling out the arena, dude, I was in meetings with that motherfucker. Like, there's no way that you get kicked out because you're being honest. Like,
Man.
come on, man. I've been in meetings with him. He's not okay. Anyway, moving on. Yes, do not adjust your screens. There's something different about me. I got new glasses. I lost my other pair hunting this season, so I
Oh.
had to get new glasses. These are Randy Jackson and Malc. I needed to know, does it up my street cred if I have Randy Jackson series glasses from his line? Because I feel like it should, at least a few points.
I mean, among the singers, probably, what I'm saying? You might get some points in that category, but I mean, hey, if it makes you happy, I'll agree with it. Yeah, you're definitely good on this side, Rich.
Oh, so Malcolm, him and I apparently have switched roles this NFL season. I am
uh,
not wanting to unlock my phone to see what injury has popped up on my notification screen for the 49ers. Malcolm is doing the rarest thing right now and celebrating win after win after win with the Washington Commanders. It's just how you been feeling, man? Like we're over the midway point of the season, and it's been post after post on your
mhm.
stories or Instagram of just you having to silence the phone because people are trying to talk that trash to you, and you're not having it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it's a unique feeling. I'll say that much. I mean, normally as a Washington fan, we're used to, wait until next year or, just waiting to get out of our cold streak. But I'm definitely glad to say I think this is the beginning of like a string of good seasons. I'm not one of those fans who are like naive enough to be like, oh, Super Bowl this year. But I mean, anything is a great turnaround from a 4-13 season. So I gotta give the props to the front office. This has been something that has been in the making for some time. If you're any like if you follow NFL in any capacity then that we've been making a lot of moves up top before actually going for actual players and trying to change the personnel. So it feels good to actually see it pay off, man. So yeah, man. Like you said, I'm in a rare spot right now. I don't think I've been I don't think I've been this happy about, being a Washington fan since we had RG3 for his rookie season. But it's fun, man. I'm loving it.
He is, of course, wearing his now Lucky shirt. I
Come
send
on
that to him, and
now.
he probably doesn't even take it off anymore.
I don't. Especially on Sundays, man. I wear it all day. So
Apparently, that's only effective for NFL and not for fantasy. Malcolm was the first one in the league this year to get eliminated. So it's like, okay, I guess
man,
if you're gonna have one, have one. Sometimes it just be like that though, and that's okay. But
yeah.
the NFL season has been rough. Hunting season was good. I got my deer, so that was a success. And like I said, lost my glasses in the process, but I got a new pair. So we're entering a new chapter, 500. This episode will officially close out the 2024 year. And then 2025 marks the 10th anniversary of the show, and that will be
Mm.
where we have episode 501. So we're closing a few chapters now. My birthday, obviously, end of one, start of a new chapter. When you have a December birthday, like you look back not at just the last year, but it's the last calendar year kind of counts as like your birth year. It's not like you have one in June and you have like your calendar year and then your birth year, and which one was better. Like mine's the same. So it's been a lot, but overall, the year has ended, not over yet, but it has ended a lot better than it had started. Me and Malc going to the championship game, bringing back the show, in March, and then there were some hiccups there, but then we end up getting to the championship game in August, and then things kind of slowed down. But I got a new series, Stars of Big Sky Country,
Hmm.
5 sponsors, so I sold out of sponsorships as far as the number I had in mind. And that's something that I've loved about starting this show and watching it kind of evolve into what it is for me personally, it's been a lot of reinvention. I love the art of reinvention. You see it a lot in like wrestling. Characters, they work for so long until they don't, and then a wrestler, has to reinvent themselves. Mick Foley did it a lot. Chris
Hmm.
Jericho did it a ton. The Rock has done it from time to time, but these are guys who, their character, it seems like it's always a success. Maybe not for Mick Foley. He had to try 1,000 times and fail before on the 1,001th he finally found something that worked.
Hmm.
But it started out as the Butt Fumble podcast, and it was just supposed to be this thing that passed the time, and then a rebrand and some input from people that were professionals at the time in podcasting, and now we're doing a 500th episode. And I have a series. I have a under that brand because it's become a brand, and it's just been a wild ride. I mean, that's really the best way to describe 500 episodes because I know people that hit me up, hey, what's the best advice you have about starting a podcast? And I say,
Hmm.
get through 10 episodes and let's revisit this conversation. Because
Mm.
the thing about doing anything like this is that you can have this idea, you can have the passion and the energy at first, but it's seeing it through. Like when I started, I didn't have a schedule, but I eventually said, okay, I need to get on a schedule here where it's like, okay, we're going to do this episode comes out every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, or I go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7. And you
Mm.
have to do that every time. I don't believe that consistency is key in doing things consistently the same way every time. Like obviously the show's intro, the graphics, those have all kind of changed and evolved and things like that, and I think that that's needed. But the only consistency that you need to stick to is if you say you're going to post an episode Wednesday at 5 o'clock, you do it every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So
Mm.
I say 10 because you can get through the first 3 or 5 pretty easily. But then 6, 7, 8, 9, you're like, oh, like I had so much work this week. Like it's okay. Like I'll post. What is it? Wednesday. I'll post tomorrow. Like what's the difference a day makes? And then the next week you're like, oh, like there's just so much going on. I'm so tired. I didn't get a chance to record the episode. So we'll pick it up next week. And when you start doing that and allowing those things to happen, it's just going to keep snowballing from there, where now
Mm,
you've made one excuse. So what's another excuse for yourself? So I always tell people, get through 10 episodes and then we'll revisit this conversation. Because if you can't get through 10 of, Wednesday at 6, then it's not going to be something that you are going to be able to devote the time and energy needed for it to be something that you want it to be. I love the
sure.
enthusiasm, love the energy, all that. But the second that you start making excuses for yourself and being okay with those is the second
Hmm.
that it's like you might as well not even do it. And I don't mean to like tell people to give up on their dreams. I'm just trying to put things into perspective because 500 is a milestone that I didn't think I was going to reach when I started this. And here we are. And it's gotten to that because I was able to tell myself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to focus on this. And then it's, like I said, it's character reinvention and it's kind of grown and adapted from that. When 2020 happened and there weren't sports, you pivot. When IFL season is over, you pivot. Like I don't just keep doing the same thing. So Stars of Big Sky Country is my pivot right now. Like I
Hmm.
have a new series that people are paying me to do bi-weekly, and I've had people sponsor me and pay me to go to things like the IFL Championship. And I know there's 10 other media outlets covering indoor football or arena football, and none of them have that kind of thing going because they're set in what they're doing. And
Yeah.
that's fine for them, but it's not for me. So,
Yeah.
Malc, 500 episodes. What questions you got for me?
Well, first off, I just want to kind of backtrack and just add a little commentary to what you just said. I love how you went all Tony Robbins, David Goggins on us for a second, But no, I mean, that's very, very motivational. Yet, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's never going to be a perfect time to start anything really, and that's what a lot of guys who are looking to break into the content creation world are waiting on. I'll do it when I get the perfect camera. I'll do it when I lose this weight, or I'll do it when whatever the case is. But the fact of the matter is, you just gotta jump in there and get to it, man. I mean, you learn along the way, and that's kind of the method I've been taking with a lot of things. So I mean, I respect that wholeheartedly. Um, Also, I mean, I'm definitely a fan of the new series. I mean, I've been keeping up with it and sending it to people and stuff. It's very rich esque. You have that. You definitely bring your energy to it, but I mean, it's like it's refreshing to see something new as well, especially with different across different sports and stuff like that. It's really cool to see, man. So I mean, I'm loving it. I'm loving it for sure. But that kind of brings me to my first question. Les, like I said, I've seen you interview football players, of course. You've interviewed basketball players, volleyball players. I mean, it's a lot to be said about either sport, but do you have a personal favorite sport where you like to pull athletes from and interview them?
It's tough call because obviously the fan show, like the name and the premise of it was
Hmm.
created to be, there was a time where ESPN felt like TMZ for sports. It was like gossipy, and you'd hear clips of these guys sitting in the press room with these coaches and players asking these questions, and you're like, that's the best you've got? Like, you get paid to work for a company or an outlet, and that's the best question you've got for them? Or when I would cover Eastern Washington University, their football team, and we'd be in there, and you only get the coach and the players for so long before, like, they're going to go hit the shower and go home. It's been a long
Hmm.
game for them, and you would have this guy, I forget, he was like from Idaho and worked for like one of the papers, and he wouldn't have a specific question ever. He basically wanted you to explain and recap the whole game back to him in your own words. So he'd be like, yeah, things really kind of slowed down there for special teams. Kind of talk to me about what was going through your mind and the adjustments you made. It's like, dude, there were 4 quarters of football, and you want him to recap an entire aspect of that game? So I would get so furious. So the fan show has always been, I'm a fan of a lot of things. And if I ever got
Hmm.
to sit down and talk with these people that I'm a fan of, what would I want to know as a fan? And, there's some not so great questions that fans ask, but for the most part, like, you'll get a person be like, "Oh, yeah, I kind of wanted to know that too. That's a good question," because like we're not in the game, we're not in the
Hmm.
locker room with you guys and stuff like that. We're fans, and what you give us through clips like that is what we get. So football is definitely up there because I'm such a big fan of football. But I think really pro wrestling, anytime I
Mm.
get to talk to guys that are either independent or wrestling, because there's so much that I don't know about it. And I just have that thirst for knowledge and be like, I want to know as much about this process that I can. And then even the sports that I know nothing about, it's kind of fun to hear, them talk about their sport. When I just this last few months, I brought back the player of the game and I did the first ever runner of the meet for a cross country meet. And so
Hmm.
talking to them, talking to the volleyball players, things like that, it's fascinating. So, football definitely first and foremost, but I think really the sneaky one is wrestling anytime I get to talk to them or a musician, if we're not sticking strictly to sports, because as a former one, there's a whole creative process that could be completely different to what mine was, and I really want to know what that's like for them. So I think the more interested you are in the subject matter, the better the interview and the better the questions.
I like that. I like that a lot. If you guys know Rich at all or follow him on Instagram, you will know how much he loves wrestling. He actually has a really close friend who's a professional wrestler. So I mean, yeah, Rich is definitely a WWE fanatic. So get to know him, guys. Though I love how you said, especially like in the interviewing aspect, there are such a thing as dumb questions. Some people will say, you just ask whatever, but the biggest thing that I've learned from you and being a part of the fan show is just asking what the fans want to know. I remember watching an interview after a Broncos game where the guy asked kind of like you said the guy did back in the day. He asked Bo Nix about an interception. He just literally, it was just very very vague and open ended. He was just like, yeah, so Bo, you threw an interception, walk us through that. And this super strange question to ask for sure. And I love Bo Nix answer. He was just like, yeah, I threw the ball and the defense called it. Because I mean, because dumb questions deserve dumb answers. So I'm just like, you got to think about this. This stuff is a lot more intricate. It takes a lot more prep time than people would realize. And I mean, your work shows it, man. I mean, it shows. You can tell that you're not somebody who just does this as a hobby. It's something that you actually put time into, and it's a great product for sure. Um, I kind of wanted to know as well, just talking about the beginning and the conception of the idea of the fan show, formerly the Butt Fumble podcast. you know, starting off, did you have any inspiration, or like did you look at any one podcast to model your setup or your lineup, whatever the case is? Did you model the podcast after anything in particular?
uh, At first, no, and I wish I did, because the
Mm.
first episode of the Butt Fumble podcast, I will tell you wholeheartedly, was terrible. I had no idea what I was doing. I had like notes. I remember the big thing that season, because I started during preseason of
Mhm.
the NFL season that year. And Jared Hayne, who was the former rugby star from Australia, had signed with the 49ers to return punts. And so it was
Mm.
like one of the strangest thing. Everybody would be like, whoa, 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 I want to watch this punt return. Like you've never seen that before in football ever. And so I remember I had that written down and I was like, I want to come out and be very honest that we're going to talk a lot of 49ers football because that's what I know and I don't want to talk about stuff I don't know. And so I
Mm.
sat in the corner of our spare bedroom on the floor with this microphone in my hand and the laptop on the floor, and I just hit record and I would just like started talking.
Mm.
and and so I put it out there, I published it. It was like 35 minutes, and I had, a bunch of friends who had encouraged me to do this, get back to me, and they're like, hey, I think you need like, some talking points, obviously, blah blah blah. And they're like, maybe a co-host because I was terrible by myself. So I didn't. I shouldn't have. But then as time went on, I think there can be inspiration both in what you want to be like and what you don't want to be like. Kind of like in school, there's that teacher you love and that teacher you absolutely despise. And the
Hmm.
thing that they have in common, though, is that both can make you think for a minute that you want to be a teacher one day. The one that you love makes you want to be a teacher because they genuinely inspire you, right? Like you're
Hmm.
like, I want to be a teacher. Like he's awesome. Like teaching is the best thing ever. The one that you
Hmm.
despise is because you're like, I want to be a teacher. We're going to do things my way, my rules. I'm going to be the cool teacher. Everybody's going to love me. Like I'm not going to be the asshole teacher. And so
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's similar in the creation process is that you can have a podcast that you listen to religiously and pay homage to them, I guess, do as much as you can without full-blown copying them. But then you
Hmm.
can have the podcast where it's just like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy's intro is shit, and this guy, all these sound bites are crap, and you can be like, I'm going to do mine way better. And
Hmm.
so
For sure.
I knew Colin Cowherd was one of the big names at the time. But of course, I got started before podcasting was even like really a thing. I think Adam Carolla was like one of the biggest known podcasts. And then you had Howard Stern's radio show on Sirius XM. So I knew Colin Cowherd was one. I couldn't really stand him. So I was like, okay, everything he does, I want to do the opposite. And it was mainly his tone. He was so condescending, he was so arrogant and so like I'm right, you're wrong. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to be that at all. Like I'm going to be conversational. I'm going to be optimistic. I want to be this and this. So it's funny, but yeah, I would say there was more inspiration drawn from the guys I didn't like than the ones I did like
Mm.
because I found my sportscaster voice from Stuart Scott. Like when I did highlights or called games, I wanted to be the booyah guy. Like that was
Mm.
easy. But this was different. And so it took a little bit of like, talking with people, interview clips of interviews that you really liked. What did they do? How did they ask that question? What was talked about and things like that. And then you look at, who's a popular podcast? What do you like? What do you don't like? And just kind of go from there.
That's cool. That's cool. And I'm glad you mentioned a couple podcasts. I want to circle back to that with my next question. But yeah, man, I mean, that just kind of stays true to the idea of just put yourself out there. Just get started and go where see where it goes from there because then like I said, there's never gonna be a perfect time, but learning along the way is this 90%, 99% of the battle, really. I could definitely say the same because I'm kind of dabbling with content creation myself outside of the fan show, but
You've been doing good.
just
You've been doing
yeah,
good with it, man.
I
Yeah, I've
appreciate it,
enjoyed
brother. I
it.
appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it, man. I'm just still finding my legs, but much like you said, just drawing inspiration from certain things without copying it is monumental. Just pretty much putting your own flavor on something that's been done before. Because I mean, there are very few things that haven't been done in the social media world, but just adding your own flair, adding your own personality to it is something that I've always kind of kept in the forefront of my mind. But bringing it back to like I said, the other podcast, just from what you've seen, I want to say past and present. Let's put a time frame on. I'm gonna say like from like the beginning of the podcast era. Do you have like a Mount Rushmore of sports podcasts?
Ooh. Okay, so Mount Rushmores are difficult questions for me because people put them like we're talking about Mount Rushmore is apparently the representation of the goat of something.
Hmm.
And that's not what Mount Rushmore is. Like those are the founding fathers. Those are the people
Yeah.
that changed our world here as Americans.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if people, well, I definitely know people nowadays with woke culture or whatever else you want to call certain stuff politically would definitely not put George Washington as like one of the greatest of all time, because they're like he owned slaves and whatever. It's like okay, but
uh,
like we're talking about different times. So anyway,
right, right,
the
right.
Mount Rushmore thing for me is very much not like what the greatest of all time for is.
Okay.
It's who like made it what it is today, basically.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so for me, you think about podcasts. I think Adam Carolla, who was one of the first ones, he would have to be up there just because I don't think we would know what podcasts are without him. Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
and again, I haven't even listened to like Adam Carolla's podcast. His name in that podcast just came up a lot when I was looking into starting mine. Joe Rogan, I've heard clips and listened to a few episodes, but I think like he's got to be on there for what he's contributed to the podcasting
Hmm.
world.
I agree.
And then, kind of the others, oh man, that's really tough. Jericho's podcast, Talk is Jericho. That's one that was actually a huge inspiration to me when I rebranded into the fan show, because here's a guy who is so famous that he can literally do anything because of how famous he is. He's a frontman for a rock band. He's one of the
Hmm.
greatest wrestlers of all time. Like he would be on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, just because of like he's succeeded in every brand or company that he's wrestled for. And so he
Hmm.
had Talk as Jericho, and he would talk to all different walks of life, musicians, wrestlers, guys that do paranormal investigating. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
the podcast that gets it. Like this is where I want to be with mine. And that's when I
Hmm.
created the different, you know, um, the different divisions, the music, the wrestling, the outdoors. And so he was a huge inspiration for that. And so I would think Chris Jericho as a fourth one. God, that's tough because there's so many good ones out there. But yeah, Adam Carolla, Chris Jericho, Joe Rogan. What is it's got to be a sports one for
Hmm.
this one, just for argument's sake. And so I think even though it's a show, it was on the it's on TV and radio. Like Dan Patrick, his show is in podcast form after, and I think what he's done for sports in that world is monumental too. So those would be my four. People could probably argue one or two of them, but I mean, as far as what it was when I started to what it is now, those are
Yeah.
the four names that if anybody like you asked me, hey, tell me about the evolution of podcasts, those are who I'm going to direct you to as far as changing the game. So.
I like it. I like it. And I would have said two of those myself, Joe Rogan for sure. Jericho, I kind of came across his podcast just on my YouTube feed. I was just scrolling, and I guess something that I watched previously kind of fell in line with that. So it popped up and I watched the episode. I was like, this is cool as shit. So yeah, I think personally, I think it's like three main aspects that kind of make a good podcast. One being the host, the personality itself, because I mean, like I think that's what kind of draws people to you the most, outside of like what you're talking about or what it is that you're doing. It's people come to see the person, the host, I think. Also, secondly, the conversation itself, because you can't really, um you won't last too long if you don't have anything of substance to talk about. And then lastly, I think the guest, and Joe Rogan does a great job of that, like scheduling people who are especially in like pop culture, people who you want to hear from, who you're like interested in actually hearing what they have to say. And that's it's really cool how guys like that are in tune with the not only the public but their guests, and it makes for a good show for sure. So I mean, I gotta agree with you for sure on that.
I think a lot of
Uh,
it's variety too, like you can be an expert in one thing, absolutely, and you can talk
mhm.
about that and have great content. But if you are able to do what Jericho's done and have compelling conversations with people that are way outside your wheelhouse, or Joe Rogan, and,
Mhm.
and line up awesome guests, I mean, that speaks volumes to what you are able to do as a whole and not just one trick. Like I've always said, good bands can rock your world live and on a fully recorded and produced album. A great band can melt your heart acoustically too. Like they can play
Mhm.
that acoustic song that like you're crying at the end of it. Like
For sure.
that's I mean just my opinion.
No, no, I would absolutely say you're right on that, man. I mean, shoot, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in podcasts, but the great ones get seem to have like the perfect mix of everything to go right. So I mean, yeah, it's definitely up for anyone's interpretation, but yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head with that. Um, Speaking of which, too, I know you did coverage and along your journey. as a journalist, you've done coverage in a bunch of different places. I met you in Omaha. You did some work in Spokane. Like you said, Sioux City, Montana. Now, uh, let's take out Montana since you currently live there, and then your hometown. Let's say, um, where exactly would you say is like a dream destination to do coverage for any sports teams in any particular area?
Ooh. So I think given where I am now, not like physically, like not Montana, but just, doing bringing the player of the game back and doing it for not just football, but, we did it for volleyball and cross
Hmm.
country and stuff like that. And it was so fun to be able to do that for the different sports and have our first female player of the game and have our first runner of the meet. So I think it now, because before I probably would have said, oh, San Francisco for the Niners, obviously
Yeah.
but that's the easy, that's the gimme. But I
Yeah.
think really it would have to be a city that's got everything. And Phoenix is one city that Danji and I talked about moving to when we couldn't
Mm.
find work in Spokane because they not only have a team in every sport, but they have a team in every level of every sport. We're talking
Yeah.
soccer, baseball, football, all that. And then, Florida, I don't think it would be one city. Orlando would be a good one, but they don't have a football team. But I mean, you could argue they're within driving distance of Tampa Bay and Jax.
Yeah.
So probably cities like that, where you've got a good variety. Yeah, I think I could really hit my stride in a city like that. Otherwise, what Great Falls has taught me is that you can bring a professional national presence and attitude to a smaller city and knock it out of the park because nobody loves and appreciates that more than small towns. So you could even put me in an Iowa or something like
Mm.
that, and I'd probably do well. But I'd say those are the good ones.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I've always pegged you as like a big town guy. Like if you had to choose, I figured that you would pick like the San Fran, obviously, like you said, because yeah, your favorite NFL team is there. But I kind of figured you would say like Texas or something. It's cool to to actually hear your answer. But I mean, I don't doubt you would do well anywhere. So I think I think anywhere you plant your feet, you have a good chance at making your mark there. So that's really cool.
I know our party crasher agrees. Destiny Brown has entered the chat right now.
Yeah.
Doing.
What's going on, DB?
Not too much. I'm digging the red hair.
Hey, you and me both. You got two fans
Yeah.
right now, Rich.
Malcolm was just asking me some questions since we're celebrating 500 episodes. Is there
Hmm.
one that you had that you've been dying to know? Because you've been a good chunk of this journey with me.
Man, I don't know. I feel like just over the years you got to see what, grow and kind of mold yourself into just this well-rounded machine. I feel like everything that I've ever wondered about you, man, you continue to prove through your show and you continue
Yeah.
to prove through your tenacity and just your dedication to this project, man, and it continues to shine every year. So I don't know if I have a question, just more of congratulations to you and all that
Mm.
you've been able to accomplish. And, I know that the sky's the limit for you. So I just can't wait for what the next 500. So we'll see. We'll see how far you come, man.
Yeah, you and me both. 500. Like I said, a milestone. I did not think. I mean, I thought it would be great if I could hit 500. But I knew the first 100 was going to be the hardest, and it was. And here's a quick funny story I'll tell you because I thought maybe Malcolm was going to ask, other than my first episode, if there was another moment that stands out as far as things that happened during the show's tenure. The first time I ever went live. So we were in
Mm.
Spokane and we had rebranded to the Fan Show. And so I said, this is going to be live. We're going to go live every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock. The first time I ever went live. So I'm in the midst of the episode. We're going through the headlines and I'm talking. All of a sudden, because I was going to do a phone interview later with somebody, so I had my phone plugged in and I get this call from an unknown number, and I was like, "Oh, hey, somebody's watching the show. They want to call in. Like, this is great. I'm feeling the energy." I hit answer, and I'm like, "Hello," and all I hear on the other end is, "Stop what you're doing right now." and don't pay another penny for overpriced auto insurance. That was what? Like I about had a heart attack because I thought like I was violating some FCC thing because all I hear is stop what you're doing. I'm like, what? No joke. That was
Instantly
the first
caught.
time. That was the first time I ever went live. I get that call, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" So I hang up, and I was like, "That's the most random phone call I've ever gotten in my life," and I get it as I'm going live. So,
Oh, but
Talk about impeccable timing.
oh
oh,
man.
for sure, for sure.
So I wanted Destiny to join to have a third head in the box
Hmm.
because we are announcing the Fan Show Hall of Fame class 2024. She is a Hall of Famer herself, class of 2022. No, we did not do 2023. I mean, we didn't really do anything with the show that year. I didn't feel it was right to do a Hall of Fame class, just be like, and then there's this. But obviously, the show's been back, and
Hmm.
the criteria, people ask me, what's your criteria? And so what's funny is that for Full Sail University, their criteria they'll tell you is simple. It's three things. It's you have to be graduated for 10 years.
Hmm.
You have to be in the industry for 10 years, and then you have to give back, right? I mean, they don't say that you have to be the best or even really, really good at what you do, but they kind of mean it because, I mean, there's Oscar winners that are in the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, come on, they're pretty good. So for the Fan Show Hall of Fame, did you have an impact in what it is that you did? So if you're a player, did you have an impact on the field, with the team, with the franchise, with the community? So not just a good player on the field, but off it as well. If you were a fan, does everybody know who you are? Like, are you one of those
Hmm.
fans that people get excited to see at when they go to your game or when you're going to an away game? And then, the rest, as far as wrestling, battle bots, things like that, you can kind of fill in the blanks. But then the other criteria is, how well known and well respected are you amongst that community? And then, have you supported the show? Because I feel like that's kind of, an obvious one is how much have you supported, given back to, like, were you available for interviews? Have you, been on the show? Are you player of the games? Things like that. Shared the content. Because without that, it's like, what business do they have being in a fan show Hall of Fame? Like,
Hmm.
it's not just, a Hall of Fame to be a Hall of Fame. Like, this is for the people that through my journey have had an immense impact on me, and then in turn what they do in some kind of way. And Destiny, obviously, prime example of that. She's a GM that everybody freaking knows. She's a fan favorite, and she has always supported me in the show, over the last probably not all 10, but pretty close to it at this point. So I thank her immensely for that. She's definitely a deserving Hall of Fame member. So that's
Hmm.
my criteria for anybody that wanted to know. So now then, the Hall of Fame class, I'm very excited about these inductees because when I was thinking about, okay, who goes in, who can wait another year or so, it was kind of one of those decisions, internal discussions of like, okay, well, how did I get started? Because we're celebrating episode 500. And so you think about the Spokane Empire and the people from the very beginning. And then, Malcolm asked me my podcast, Mount Rushmore. And so kind of the people that help me evolve into what it is now and the people that have really helped along the way. So obviously Destiny is a huge one. She's already in it. So we're looking at five people who I'm very excited about finally getting inducted. Some I couldn't believe weren't in already, but nonetheless, here we are. So to start things off, the first inductee for the Fan Show Hall of Fame class of 2024 is a man who was a part of that Spokane Empire team when I first got into indoor football. He also played for the Spokane Wolf Pack, which is where I got my PA debut as a public address announcer. I got some reps there, got to finally work very closely with the team, do some of their media and PR. I mean, he really helped me get my foot into a few doors back then.
Hmm.
And he has moved around quite a bit to Grand Island, Nebraska, to Des Moines, Iowa. He is back in Spokane now as a high school coach, and he is kicking ass. But never has he ever declined an interview or a chance to talk shop, share stories and memories of indoor football. So this guy leading us off, so deserving. It is Marshall Hart. I
Man.
mean, you guys both know him. Marshall's fantastic. Destiny, you've come across Marshall before. You have a Marshall memory?
Yeah. One or two.
So, so Marshall, I mean, if you ever are looking for somebody in a certain vein, or an industry, or a league or whatever that can be that kind of go-to. He's always so optimistic. He's always so friendly. When we had him with me and Malcolm on, he was so much fun to talk to. He's always a good
Mhm.
interview. Like I said, he's always supported the show. But I mean, everybody loves Marshall, and he's had his impact in Spokane, in Grand Island, and with Des Moines, and now he's with Tucson, doing player personnel stuff. But it really, the thing I'm most proud of him for is what he's been able to do with that high school team back home in Spokane, and they're crushing it. So congratulations, Marshall Hart, on being inducted into the Fan Show Hall of Fame class of 2024. This next one, though, this one was, I think, a little overdue, but at the same time, again, I can't say enough about this individual. I think really, when you look at the world of indoor football, the indoor football world was a better place because of him. And, it was a slow start when I did the tour, but Des Moines, Iowa was always one of my favorite places to go before Quad City, obviously. I mean, I love Malign. All right, come on, we know that. But, the Barnstormers and their history and their fans and that team, the goggles and the wings and everything, it's just so iconic. You want to be good with that team if you're going to cover arena or indoor football because it's a staple. And so you want to get good with front office and ownership. And John Pettit was one that you really had to get in good with, because if he liked you, then you were in. And if he didn't, you were out. And I don't know how I did it, because you can never read that man. But I
Mhm.
somehow won him over, so much so that when I got fired from the Storm and when our cat baby Kitty died during 2020, one of the worst years for anybody, and we're alone in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, he called me and he asked how I was doing. And he said,
Mhm.
about the time that they had to put his cat down and how terrible of a time that was for him, and to keep my chin up because this was just a minor setback for me, and that they loved the work that I did for indoor football and stuff like that. And he didn't have to do that. Like there's nobody holding the gun to his head saying call this person, and for him to do that was huge. So it is the late great John Pettit is our next inductee. But Malc, Des Moines, a great place to play. I know that you've been there, but what you've experienced as a player in the world of indoor football, a lot of credit goes to him, and how he has helped kind of shape that league. So I
Mm.
hope maybe you got a chance to meet him. I don't know if you did, but yeah, John was a great dude.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I unfortunately I didn't meet him myself, but I mean his reputation precedes him for sure. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I mean, he's one of those guys that you just look at the sport, and you think they're lucky to have had this guy, take part in it because like you said, this as a player, I can see the changes and his mark that was left on the sport of indoor football.
Yeah, I mean, just there's so much there for him to be able to have the impact on the league that he did, in the IFL. I mean, he's synonymous with indoor football and Destiny. I don't know, did
Mm.
he have any sort of advice or influence for you being the position that you are, especially when Quad City went dormant for that year and then came back?
Yeah, I'll just say John Pettit is a man that anyone would look to, trying to make their name in this industry, and the way that he led and guided and supported his franchise. I would say he obviously is a groundbreaker and a trailblazer. So, I mean, anybody would want to be like John, and I think that that shows through the legacy even that he's left now and all the lives that he touched, whether you are a player, a staff member, or just even a fan alone. I think anybody who led in the way that he did, is set for success because he was just one of a kind.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, John Pettit, your second inductee for the class of 2024. Now, the third one. So, I looked at Destiny's class, I think. There was no players in there. We've got two this year, thankfully, which is awesome. The first year we had a couple and a coach, but there's always been a fan, because you're not the fan show without the fans. And so, this year's fan inductee is somebody who really went above and beyond like anything I could have ever imagined. He is well known throughout the indoor football community. People love when he shows up to the away games and stuff like that. He's always there for the home team, even if he has a team, which unfortunately happens to be Sioux Falls. But this was a guy who, when I got hired by the Storm, I didn't have a place to live yet, and they wanted me to be there for at least a couple weeks to kind of get established, get set up, and then my wife and I were going to move and stuff. So he let me stay in his spare bedroom for that time and helped me kind of get integrated into the city and things like that. But I mean, whether it's, in the same city or halfway across the country or wherever I am, he's always been just such a go-to and reliable and supportive person, like the epitome of what a fan is. And so it's Adam Lamprett.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody's
I
favorite
like it.
Adam. So Adam is our fan inductee for the class of 2024, and again, I just don't think you can say enough great things about him. He's the kind of fan that you want other fans to be like. And Destiny, I know in Quad City, you guys have so many great fans like that as well. So maybe you can recruit him to become a Steam Wheeler fan since he is now sadly without a team.
Absolutely, absolutely. We got a team to cheer on this year for him.
All right, so Destiny's going to work on drafting Adam, and then we'll
Absolutely.
we'll see what goes on there. Maybe it's Sioux City, but yeah, Adam, I was almost surprised. I was like, I can't believe Adam's not in there yet. But yeah, from the start, he was one of the early people that reached out to me and that I got to know when I started touring with the show, and so it's been a great friendship ever since then. So the fourth one, we got two left. This one, long overdue, I think, for me personally, because he was with Spokane, the Empire, for a year. But this guy, like, okay, there's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Kurt
Mhm.
Warner is in there. And I feel Kurt Warner is one of the most, if not the most deserving person to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he exceeded at every level that he played in, whether it was arena football, professional football, or even what the European League and Canadian football, whatever else he did. He's been all over the place and excelled there. And so it's
Mm.
not the NFL Hall of Fame, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And this guy, I think when he calls it a career, should really have a place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because he's got as many rings as teams that he's played for, and everywhere he goes, he's an instant success. He's a great interview. He's so much fun. Me and Malcolm have talked to him, and even if we have to re-record the whole episode again because he wasn't sure if what he said was going to be okayed by the coach. But you know how much we love kickers here, right? Kickers need
Mhm.
love too, and so a man taking his belated but rightful place in the Fan Show Hall of Fame is none other than Craig the Leg Peterson. Malk, I know you love
Yeah,
Craig.
it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah, no, Craig, that's my guy, man. That's my guy. Like you said, I mean, the initial interview we had with him, it kind of got scrapped because of, the the player personnel thing. But yeah, no, he's a great time, man. Great time for sure. Great guy. I've met him a couple times. I played against him a couple times in the IFL, and man, I can't say enough about his skill as a player. But once we actually had that conversation when we had him as a guest, that just kind of upped my respect for him even more because like I said, he's a great guy for sure.
Yeah, and I still can't believe he hasn't gotten that call to go and kick for an NFL team
Oh yeah.
just because like he doesn't have college experience. It's like okay, but there was Roberto Aguayo who was a big kicker in college who got drafted, and his exit was so fast. So it's like I don't think you can have that be your crutch you lean on. That if a guy doesn't have college experience, because if Destiny, your Vikings, they got a guy who's never taken a snap professionally. He's crushed it. He got like 11 points for my fantasy team this week.
That's the best, right? Well, yeah, exactly. It's the thing, and for the first time, I think to be a Vikings fan, it didn't hurt to watch a kicker go up. So,
So we love kickers here on the show, and Craig, yeah, he makes an excellent addition to the kickers that have been inducted, which there's some good ones. So, like I said, long overdue for him. I don't know what took so long to get him in there, but he wished me a happy birthday the other day, and he's always taking time to reach out and be like, hey, what's up, or great interview, or how's things going with the show, or you coming to this game, or whatever. So it's stuff like that that really means a lot when you're working for yourself and stuff like this. So Craig has been the epitome of what it means to be a fan show Hall of Famer. But so does our fifth and final inductee. I mean, this guy, So Craig is going to be in the IFL Hall of Fame one day. This guy is going to be right there with him. First ballot, we're talking about a human highlight reel. So supportive of the show. I was shocked. I mean, there's stuff in the studio of his that he made a point to send me that I never asked for. And it's just crazy because clearly, like, we've connected on a level of like, I respect him and his talent and everything that he does and brings to not only the sport, but his team, his community, the fans, everything like that. And him to respect me in kind of a similar way as far as what I bring to the sport and to the different communities. And it's just so much fun to interact with him at a game or watch him play. And then the interviews, oh my God, like he is a content machine. And
Mm.
so I wanted Destiny on to help me with this one. So, Destiny, would you please do me the honors of announcing the fifth and final member of the class of 2024 Fan Show Hall of Fame?
Absolutely. The one, the only, Kevin the Stud Rudd.
That's right, man. And this is a receipt that Rudd can be happy to keep because like that dude is just so full of energy, and it's going to be such a sad day when he doesn't play
Mm.
anymore. It really will be. And I think, I know he would be great at any other level, Canada, NFL, whatever, but he is embraced the culture and world of indoor football better than most. And that's why I think he's in like his own elite group as far as just when you think of the indoor football league and who's kind of helped usher it to where it is now. His name has got to be top two and not number two as far as the people that have really helped do that. And there's only a handful that you could think of that would be mentioned in the same breath as his. But man, Destiny, you guys got somebody good there. I don't know how you did it, but you guys did it in Quad City.
Homegrown talent. That's all that is right there. That's what you hope for and can only dream of, to find right there in your backyard. And obviously Keevan's got a few years on me, but we were going through high school and stuff around the same time, and you'd see his name in the papers. I mean, and it's not stopped since. I mean, and to have a guy, I always praise him on his attentiveness, not only to our fan base, but our community, and using you know, his platform to really give back and make it, an impact on these kids and show them, it doesn't, take anything but some hard work and dedication. And you could be from
Hmm.
Davenport, Iowa, the Quad Cities, does not matter. You can chase that dream and you can make it true. So it's such an awesome thing to be a part of this and to get to obviously, you know, welcome him in alongside you both. And yeah, I think that's awesome. So thank you for letting me be a part of that.
Hey, no problem. I figured from one Hall of Famer to the next, it was fitting. And Malcolm, you guys at the indoor level, and I think any level for sure, but I see it the most because the fans are right there. They're at the dasher
Mm.
boards with you, or they're hosting potlucks, or they're inviting you guys over for this holiday barbecue or this dinner or whatever. Like, there's so much more of an intimacy factor to the game of indoor football when it comes to the relationship between players, front office, coaches, and fans than I think
Hmm.
any other sport really. Maybe hockey would be the next one at the minor league level. But for you, when you set out to do your thing, in the world of indoor football, would you say that Rudd's example is like it checks all the boxes as far as what a player should aspire to be when you're participating in a league like the IFL?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly. I mean, he personified it perfectly when he was on here with us. That's a guy who not only cares about his own performance, but the guys around him, and more importantly, how it comes off to the viewership. A lot of people kind of and neglect to understand that you're not only playing for yourself, but when you put on that jersey, you're representing the fan base, you're representing the city as a whole. And if you're acting a fool out there, then it just kind of makes everybody look bad. So Rudd, he actually keeps that in mind with his play, with his mannerisms, with his body language, all of that. So somebody to I would tell anybody who's just coming into professional athletics period, to watch this guy because he's the consummate person you would want to be if you're trying to just be a good person on and off the field. So yeah, man, I couldn't agree more.
All right, guys. Well, that is the list of the five inductees for the class of 2024 for the Fan Show Hall of Fame. Got some belts to send out. Obviously, we're a little bit behind on that, but I got to get the speeches from people. I know, Destiny, you and I talked. We wanted me to set up like a date and a time and a place and go and do this thing right. But when you move three times in 5 years, like it's just not going to
Mm,
be the easiest thing. So, in true fan show fashion, we'll have to do this thing over something like this. But I got to get people to write their speeches and send them in to me so we can have like an actual induction ceremony, a makeshift one. But either way, the classes, the ones that we've had in this one, I feel so good about everybody that's in them. People like Destiny, Amir Ishmael, who's now going to be back with the Pirates. Jordan Endry is a kicker from Green Bay who's been around. The lower levels of football and had such a great impact. But there's just so many people that do so many great things. But I mean, these are the ones that, as far as me and my travels, I've been like, they get it, and I
mm.
think you guys both agree on that. So thank you, Destiny, for joining us here to help me out with that. And Malc, thank you for joining me for what's been a fun and entertaining episode 500. Like I said to Malc, Destiny, this is how we're closing out 2024. And then 2025 is the big 10-year anniversary, and we'll have 501. And there was plans. I talked to Destiny about this. There was big aspirations, big plans for that, and they might have to wait a year because I might try it out here in Montana first to see how well it goes. But I do plan on doing a tour
Mm.
for the 10th anniversary, and we'll see which cities I go to. I don't have to worry about going to Sioux Falls now, so that's a big win. But Malcolm, you probably already saw, but Malcolm has an announcement. He's pregnant. No, Malcolm has has signed to play, and Shabuzi's the father. Malcolm has signed to play. Where are you playing at?
It's in Beaumont, Texas.
Beaumont, Texas. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited. I can't get over what you just said. I'm sorry. No. I'm super excited because I've been pretty much all around Texas, whether it's San Antonio, Dallas, Frisco, Houston. Great place to be. I hate the Cowboys, obviously, but no, I do love Texas though. It's a great place, and I haven't been to Beaumont yet, but from what I hear and what I've seen, they're a pretty lively bunch over there, and I mean they're excited to get started. It's a new team, so the fan base just couldn't be happier to have a pro team over there representing them. So I'm glad to be a part of that inaugural bunch. So I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be fun.
I told him that he had to still try to, pencil in appearances on the show, obviously, because I'm not going to try and look for another co-host after a year of getting one that finally worked, 9 years
Hmm.
into this, and that he wasn't allowed to go and talk on those other pretender shows because he is a fan show exclusive at this point.
Hey, I had them working into my contract, man. They know it. They know it now.
And of course, Destiny is preparing for another killer season of IFL football. At the start of the show, I was talking about the teams that went dormant, and somebody said, I want to say it was one of the dumb sites like ITA or something that said no team has ever come back from dormancy. Quad City did though. Quad City went dormant a year and came back, so that information is false. So you hope that they can. You know that the odds are not in their favor to do so, but Quad City did it. Quad City went dormant and came back, and that I
Mhm.
think is a true testament to what you guys got going on up there in Malina, Illinois. So,
Thank you. We
yeah,
got we got to work on that though, because I'm gonna have to tell you, it's Moline.
Uh,
Moline.
We gotta
Oh
represent the
yeah,
QC properly here on the
there it
fan
is.
show. Come on now.
And he's been saying that whole episode. That's it.
Oh,
So
I know. Earlier I had to let it slide,
Oh
but
man. I was always wondering, but I was like, nobody's correcting me yet, so I'll just. But then again,
oh,
I usually always say QC or Quad City. Like I don't ever
mm,
say
mm.
Moline or Malign.
yep.
So okay,
You got a
okay.
quad. I was gonna say you're gonna have a Quad City super fan and Brian Barrett come on and
Oh,
come get you. That's he's the one to watch out for out here.
just gonna ask for forgiveness at this point. It's not that I love you guys any less, because I'm sure that there were people that up to a certain point called me Tie Man or something, and it's like it's okay. I know that you still love me. It's all right.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you both so much for being on here to celebrate episode 500. We had a lot of ideas for this episode, but I think sharing some memories, letting Malc pick my brain about stuff, and then obviously announcing a new Hall of Fame class is about as good as it can get. But I'm more excited about the 10-year anniversary next year than I am about 500, because I know that that's the start of the next 500. If we get to 1,000, we'll see what that episode
Mhm.
might look like. But for right now, it's about all eyes are towards 501, and so we will see you guys in 2025 for the 10-year anniversary of the Fan Show, for the start of the 500s of episodes, and we'll
Mhm.
see what tricks the indoor world has for us and otherwise. And don't forget to go check out Stars of Big Sky Country, the new series right now, while we wait for a new season of indoor football. So thank you guys. Really, thank you all out there for 500. Wouldn't have gotten
Mhm.
here without you. The fans, the players, coaches, front office, everybody I've met along the way. You guys are how we get to 500 of these, plain and simple. If you're not clicking, listening, or watching, or sharing and liking, then we're not doing this kind of thing. So thank you all so much for that. So for one of the best GMs in the biz, Destiny Brown, for not Shabuzi, Malcolm McCoy, I am, as always, 500 episodes and counting, the team man, Richard Tiemann, and we will see you all next time.